So, good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to study the various kinds of instrumentation, sampling procedures, sampling methods that are very important for your ground truth verification and data collection. As many of you will be doing your dissertation in coming semesters, and somebody have done their dissertation at their master level. So whenever we are doing any kind of analysis related to remote sensing and GIS studies or GIS studies, mostly the data is visually or digitally classified into various land use, land cover categories. So by seeing the data, we classify the data, we map the data, whether it is hard classification or through soft classification or using visual interpretation technique. But many times anybody can ask about the accuracy of your data. What is the accuracy of your data? What is the analysis? What you are stating has got the validity? What is the real time field instrument data? Their results are similar to what the satellite image is depicting. There can be a lot of questionnaire coming up from various sections of the society where they will be asking about the validation accuracy, whether it's 100% accurate or what is the percentage of accuracy of the map that you have created. So for that ground truth collection, data verification is very important to understand the nature, to understand the area where you're doing your research, to understand the accuracy, to understand the method, to understand the procedures of data collection. So today we are going to study such procedures, such methods, such instruments that are generally used for data collection. What is the methodology? What are the precautions? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages that must be followed while you're into the field? So the ground truth data is very important. What is the objective of the data to be collected? Then what are the parameters to be measured in the field? What are the general field-based parameters that we use in the field and we measure in the field? And prior to going into the field, prior going into the visit, because involves lot of cost, will involve lot of equipment, will involve lot of infrastructure for the procurement for the field, because you have to carry the instrument when you went to the field. And then after going into the field, there was some instrument that was very required for the field instrument, but you didn't carry up. And then when you went in the field with 10 to 15 persons, you took air flight. The flight cost was near about, if you say, 10,000 rupees per ticket, and there were 10% means 2 lakh rupees is only for transportation. Then you go into the field, you book the hotels for 7 days. That approximation cost is near about 5 lakh rupees for the entire team. But when you went to the field, then you thought that some of the instruments that were very required, you left into the laboratory. So what is that? That will lead to undue expenditure, that will lead to undue results, that will lead to unnecessary delay, and that will lead to the accuracy of the data that you are talking about. And whatever instrument or whatever accuracy or whatever findings, or you'll try to substitute it with some other data set or other instrument, so that won't serve the purpose. That's why whenever you're going into the field, the field plan and the field performer must be fairly decided, must be fairly rectified by all the sections, by all the sponsoring section, by all the persons who are eminent in the field, so that nothing is left out into the field when you go into the field, because you cannot go to the same terrain again and again. That uh, is an creates a lot of expenditure whenever you are going. So that's why you have to see all these things without going into the field. And You have to have a forest accessibility mapping. You will be doing various kinds of reconnaissance survey. It can be pre field prior to any investigation or prior to any mapping. It can be during mapping and it can be post mapping. So that all depends on the objective of your research. That all depends on your utility of the result. That all depends on the funding. Okay, what are the funding that you have required for? If you have asked for only one time, then you have to be choosy in nature. But if you've got sufficient amount of fund available for the field, then you can redistribute into various. Maybe the persons going into the field may be less, and it can be increased with the duration of the projects and data customization. Then possibility of data lost, corrupt hardwares or software. So such kinds of important things we'll be reading. So data collection methods comprises two way you can collect the data sets. Either you can collect the data sets from any secondary agency like Census of India, then Soil, National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning for the soil maps, then geological maps from GSI. Then other maps can too be obtained from various government agencies. Apart from that, you need some of the data that are directly meant, or there are no secondary sources or no secondary agency who provided such kind of soil sampling of the data that you are looking for. So on the basis of your sample survey, you can classify the entire survey into two operations or two sampling kind of thing. When you're going into the field, you'll be doing a sampling. So you can classify the sampling survey or the sampling through which you'll be doing the survey into probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So we'll study in detail what you mean by probability and probability sampling. So probability sampling are samples having known probability of getting selected. Means calculation of standard error is based on deviation from the known probability range. That is the most common is random sampling. So what do you mean by random sampling? We'll be reading it. So random sampling is the purest form of probability sampling. Each member of the population has an equal and known choice of being selected. Typically, a random number tables are used. Easiest method in homogeneous population, free from biasness, but may lack rational approach, ignores knowledge of the subject, and should not be used in heterogeneous areas. So you can see that when you are using this simple random sampling, how you will be sampling enough to get your samples according to your area of interest. Then the second one is probability sampling. That is systematic sampling. Means you are system. There is a system, and that was random. So often used instead of random sampling, we use systematic sampling. It's very simple form, very easy to understand, implement. After the required sample size has been collected, every nth record is selected from a list of population members. So you can see how simplistic after 2, 3 there is a particular kind of pattern. So this is known as a systematic sampling. The next one is stratified sampling. So stratified sampling is an individual group is called a stratum based on the characteristics from the population. First, we identify the relevant stratums and their actual representation in the population. Thereafter, sampling is done used to sufficient number of subjects from each stratum, and this works best when heterogeneous population is split into homogeneous group. So what we do, there are few samples that are available of different origin. You can see of different shape and size. So what we can see, there are three shapes that are available in the study area. One is maybe a forest, One may be a build-up, other may be a wasteland. So what you will do, you will select each and you will make three classes of same nature. That you have taken three rectangles, then you have got three circles, and then you have got three rectangles. And from these three circles, these three rectangles, and these three squares, we'll be selecting one from each. So that is known as sampling. The next one is cluster sampling. Cluster family is similar to systematic random sampling, divides the population into group like we have done earlier into clusters, and it obtains a simple random sample so many clusters from all possible clusters. Obtain data on every sampling unit in each of the randomly selected clusters, typically adopted in industry. So you can see that there are various numbers in a cube that we have generated, and out of that what we'll do, we'll take out the clusters. Clusters are 9, 13, 4, 12, 29, 11, 24, 7. So we'll be taking four randomly selected unit from each of the clusters. So what we'll take, we'll make a clusters, we'll make a group, and then from each group we'll be taking some samples. So what are the basic difference between stratified and clustered sampling? So stratified random sampling is a process in which population is divided into few subgroups with the criteria related to population characteristics. It's a homogeneous nature in subgroup and heterogeneous across subgroup. Whereas in population, the population is divided into many subgroups with the criteria of easy access and availability. Next is heterogeneous nature in subgroup and homogeneity across subgroup. So whenever you are going into the field, we have now studied what are the methods through which you will be selecting the data sets. And for example, if you are going into the field, first you have to see whether that is into some restricted area, whether there is any military containment zone is there, or where a permission from various restricted areas is there, whether that is a public property or a private property. If it's a government restricted area, you have to take the permission from the concerned authority. Maybe what you have done is you have went into the field with an entire instrument, and when you want to enter into that periphery or premises, then the guard or the person who is standing it ask the entire team ki first you take the permission from the forest department, then only you will be allowed into that enter into the forest. At that point of time, if you fight with that person, that is of no use. Instead of that, prior going to the field, the letter must be sent from your commanding officer or the coordinator or the principal investigator to the concerned department that on that particular day, means the expected day from which the entire thing or the entire group wants to visit, and what is the number of days, what are the equipments, what is the purpose, what is the objective, and why you want to do, whether it's a government or a private. All the details must be sent to the concerned authority, the topmost authority, so that you get the permission prior to going into the field. Otherwise, the maybe the entire what trip may be cancelled or maybe fail because proper portion is required, proper dress is required, proper recruitment equipment that is allowed, photography is prohibited, or all such kind of information must be obtained prior to going into any premises or any field. Then forest department and itself, that whether your team is capable of conducting the survey by its own, or do you require any forest personals to accompany you or any other staff who are very familiar with the terrain, with the area. That all depends on your objective. And then forest map availability, whether you have got all those forest map availability can be easily obtained from the satellite images. The use of field guides is available, that many of the department, many of the forest department, survey of India provides various manuals related to forest, related to land. So those manuals and those norms, policies must be dealt with, must be read in detail prior to investigation, because whenever you are going into the field or whenever you are coming with an area or a calculation, that must be in accordance with the rules and regulations stated by government of India. Then the samples is collected, then the samples are identified, stored, measured, whether the objective of study is a one-time field collection or that requires in a multi-temporal, like if you're related to some agricultural practices, whether you want to see the land capacity or land suitability, then you have to see and check for each and every season. Like Kharif season, you have to go and you have to check the crop condition. Then in Rabi season, you have to go and check the crop condition, its health, the production. So all depends on your objective of the study. Finally, you will be entering the data sets. You will be finalizing it. You will be verifying all the data sets into the field, and finally real scale. So these are the few field photographs. You go into the field, always carry some instruments for the ground truth collection. Generally, we carry, for example, general term that I am talking about. We carry the most popular instrument is GPS, that is a global positioning system software, where it requires a basic understanding of the area. So the total forest area is 800 hectares, and you have to perform sampling of 1% of the area using 20 by 20 meter plot. So what is the plot size that you have to select? That is 20 to 20 meter plot, and the total area is 1 hectare, and the sampling has to be done into 1% of the land. So what it is, you will be converting this 800 into square meters, because 20 by 20 meter plot you have to convert. Then 1% of 800 hectares, that is out of this much, how much a square sample has to be sampled, means that is 400 square meters each plot. And then you have to divide this 80,000 square meters by 40, means 200 plots is required. So first, what you have to do, this all entire analysis was done, because prior going into the field, you have identified the total area, what is the sampling size that you have to be selecting it, and then you have to subdivide the entire area, so that from each and every portion, from each and every section, the entire plots that is stated mathematically or that is stated statistically will be calculated, will be generated prior to going into the field and post going into the field. So when you went into the field, you will be selecting at least 200 plots to get your sampling done. And what are the instruments that are required? Instrument is need of instrument and source. What are the instrument? What are the kind of activity? What are, whether you want to go for forest density sampling or forest type sampling or forest sampling. Uh, it all depends. Then what is the feasibility in the forest to carry out such instrument and equipment? Whether you can carry those instruments to reach the sites? What is the amount of time that is required? What is the amount of manpower that is required? What is the time? What is the money? So each and every food, water, that is very, field is very tough. Field is very tough. It's not easy, but you have to go into the field. I was associated with ISRO project, that is Wasteland Atlas of India and National Urban Information System. I was a part of a team where we created the urban information system for Darbhanga, that is a district in Bihar, then Patna, Ara, Bhagalpur, Allahabad, and Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh, Allahabad in Uttar Pradesh. We created all the urban information system, and there from each and every unit, whether that is related to land use, whether that was related to soil, whether that was related to geology, whether that was related to geomorphology, we were supposed to take and verify each and every samples and its unit. So we went into the field many times. When you're going into the field, the terrain is such that when you go into the field, you do not have hygienic food to eat on. So at that point of time, when you will go into the field and then you find there is no food or there is no good water to drink, then many times if any person is too weak, can be fainted. So you have to plan accordingly without fear that what are the important food or instrument. The batteries are charged up. Maybe one time we went in the field by luck, we charged both the batteries, but one of the battery didn't work into the field, and uh, because we have had a vehicle, he will cost you the entire money. And if you don't carry the field what was supposed to be done, because each and every day there is a area, there is a vehicle, there is a target, you have to achieve it. And if you are not achieving it, your project cost, your area, your sample source will decrease. That's why it's very important to have a check of the condition of the health of a person who's going into the field, then check of the health of the instrument, that you went in the instrument and there is a failure in the instrument. At that point of time, you cannot repair it, you cannot ask for an expert to come into the field and get it corrected. So that's why these are very important, because going into the field is not so tough as the data collection and the data sampling and the accuracy of the data. It's very important, because many times you will, there are no charging points, there are no power supplies, there is no network of your mobile. Many times people think that, oh, there is no need of carrying a GPS. The mobile that you are carrying it can be used for getting the locations of the sample. So you can be ignorant or you can be casual in approach that you will be going into the forest, and why to carry a undue instrument where, rather than that you will be taking a measurement from your mobile. But when you went into the field and you found that the towers are lost, you don't have any tower in those mobile. So what to do next? Now you cannot have a reading the GPS positioning what you were supposed to do. So you went to 200 or 300 kilometers, and then you wanted to survey, and then you found that your battery, maybe your battery backup of the mobile is lost or the tower is lost. So at that point of time, there is no meaning of regretting, and that I we should have taken the GPS. Then better than that, you charge your all the instrument before going to the field, as well as when you are going into the field. Many times you may have threat to from wildlife, and you have to carry some forest guard with you. It depends, because that is a natural boundary, you, that is not a zoo. The animals are open in nature, so many times they may attack. So you have to see, you have to be, you cannot be very sloppy, or you cannot be very excited. So you have to have a proper understanding of the threat, what are the potential threats in that area, and you have to be very careful while you're coming down, or when you're taking the readings of that area, especially in a forest area. And maybe many times in the plain area also, when we were in going in the field in Allahabad. So at that point of time, there was a dispute between the government and the villagers over there regarding the acquisition of land. And we were not knowing that. And we went into the field and we asked for, we started our GPS, the topo sheet, the various maps So there was lot of crowded and portions were uh, surrounding us, and then they were putting a lot of cushion towards, because whenever you are going into the field, each and every person thought that you are some government personnel, so they will have lot of query which are not directly related to your project, and many times they will threaten you. So if you have got proper I cards, the objective is clear, you have got proper permission, so you won't have any threat. Otherwise they can snatch your instruments, they can tone your maps and the data sets. In the same way, once we went into the field, if you go into the field, many times the people feel like you are a person who is related to some road survey or tower survey. So what has happened is, the point where we were searching to go was somewhere we were unable to locate it in the field, because there was a change in the topographic and the land use, as well as the road and rail connectivity. So we asked the local villager which is the point, and are supposed to see that wetland. So that villager thought that we are some tower person and we have come to some installation of tower. Instead of making us and going to the field in that particular location, he made us go to near about 3 to 4 kilometers by walking, and that was summer season. The temperature was near about 42 degree at 11 to 2 a.m., and that was too hot. And when we went into the field, we found that that was his agricultural land that he was planning to give to the tower station. But we said we are not supposed to come here, we are not a tower person. Then he started laughing, and then he started arguing with us. So many times the field cannot be good as you think of. And then again, we were in field in Bihar, and we were late somewhere in the field at 7 o'clock. And then the local villagers and the drivers told us that this is not the area where you should roam around at nights, and we were very scared because we were not from that terrain. And there was few hands coming up when we were driving in to stop the vehicle, so that made the entire thing very scary. So especially when you are got some female students with you, when female staff with you, then you have to take more security and sanctity, because undue endangers can happen anyway. So this all things you have to see. When there is another instance when we were going to Dharamshala, we were standing near ISBT, and I just went to the nearby shop to see some foods or snacks. Meanwhile, there was a person who was a thief, and there was a female staff in my team, and he snatched the mobile and he started running away. The female whose mobile was snatched, and the other colleague who was with me ran away with keeping all his belonging there itself, and I was standing 100 meters away from them. But what I thought, if I also ran with them, maybe they will take, maybe that the gangs can be more in nature, they will be physically present, because you don't know who is their gang members. So I was standing there knowing that I was left with no choice, because if I would have also ran away, they could have taken our bags with the costly equipments like GPS. We were carrying the GPS was there, a Spectro Radiometer was there, and the total cost of the instrument was near about 50 lakh. So maybe if that was stolen, then the entire responsibility comes to the team member, the person who went into the field, and we. So many times it's very costly and risky, because I am sharing my experience. So it's not always that you feel that what you are trying to do and what you have planned will be the same in the field. Many times it will be a different scenario altogether. So you have to search for, you have to think, and you have to be very strong when you are going into the field. Some of the field instruments that are more popular when you are going into the field is Spectro Radiometer, which measures the reflectance measurement from a target, like just like each and every object behave differently in electromagnetic radiation that we have seen, and our satellite sensor has the capacity of recording those minute differences. The same thing is being observed using a spectroradiometer, where you can see a person is carrying a spectroradiometer and then he's trying to create a spectral graph, so that the field spectroradiometer observed spectral response can be correlated with the satellite based, and it can be calibrated or it can be validated using such instruments. So generally this instrument what we have right now we are showing has a, typically it can record the data from 300 nanometers up to 100 1100 nanometers, or up to 2500 nanometers depending on the model, because the more intense or the more expansion of the band if you're doing it, that will directly result to the cost of the product. The more spectral channels you require, the most costly the instrument is. So it starts from 15 lakh rupees. A standard instrument cost is 15, and goes to 50 lakh depending on your accuracy and the spectral channels you that is required. So you see that using this spectral radiometers, we have created the spectral profile of various earth features that are available in the field, and you can correlate the same feature with the satellite image, and then you can validate the data sets. You can validate the accuracy of the data, which is more accurate, whether the data sets what you have obtained from the satellite image and what you see in the field will be spectrally and statistically correlated, so that the accurate measurement of the field can be obtained. In the same way, if you are trying to go for a canopy based measurement or canopy based instrumentation, generally we are performing NDVI and the normalize different vegetation index or vegetation, or there are various vegetation index that are used to calculate the leaf area index. So generally the canopy structure is based on leaf area index, and this is defined as the total one-sided leaf area per unit ground area, and this is one of the most important variable in ecosystem models and productivity model. So leaf area is sensitive to reflectance in visible and near infrared. It varies with forest, it varies with species, it varies with phenological stage of the forest. Along this, fraction and canopy light intersection can also be obtained from the data. So whenever you are trying to correlate or you want to do in detail research related to leaf area index, many times the indices or the data sets or the chlorophyll content or the various yield estimation that you have done has to be validated from the field based data set, so as to check the accuracy of the data and the accuracy of the classified map that has been generated. So such instrument is of great use, where using those instrumentation you can calculate the leaf area index, you can calculate the graph fraction, you can calculate the amount of direct and diffuse radiation, so as to know the proper amount of leaf area that has been covered. So you can see that how well we can calculate the exact amount of canopy using such instruments, which provides a 3D, which provides a real-time instrumentation for canopy cover. If you are associated with some photosynthesis type of instrument or equipment that you are searching on or you are interested in, so for such instrument uses or calculates the rate of photosynthesis, it's used to upgrade it for chlorophyll fluorescence measurement. And then IRGN console with connected cables, large number of environmental variables will be recorded along with the rate of photosynthesis. Efficiently calculates lies use efficiency of a leaf. So you can see how tough the terrain is, how you have to carry the equipment, how tough the life is. If you are going into the field, there are various connector, the data recorder, the data receiver, then a lot of manpower is supposed to have. You have to be very tough in your mind when you're going into the field, because you have to carry large instrument. You have to go thousands of kilometers, maybe to 2 kilometer or 5 kilometer dense deep into the forest to get an exact instrument reading. Then we have used instrument like VNIR hyperspectral images. They are nowadays very popular for field-based instrumentation, where a spectra of target species in image mode is from 350 nanometers to 1025 nanometers. It has got 96 band. It's relatively handle. You can see it's easily. It was not having a proper cables and all such problems is not there. Can range up to 4 kilometer apart. So you're standing into the field and you just target it towards a feature which is near about 4 kilometer away. Still, you can have the accurate measurement and reading of that area, but it is very sensitive to wind and shakes, because you have to have a stable mount, because it's very heavy weight. So until unless you don't have a sturdy and heavy weight, you see that a portion is have kept in a fixed tone over it, and then it is connected to a laptop where entire data sets what you're seeing is being recorded. But many times you'll not get such a strong base in a forest, so you have to manually you have to keep that instrument in your forehead, so that the area coverage is increased and you can get a real canopy and the distance covered is high. But many times, because the instrument is high, it will take time of acquisition will require. So that can create unnecessary error related to geometric or radiometric error, because of this wind direction, or because of the shaking of your head or body during the measurement. So this can be used for estimation of plant and biochemical composition. So such instruments are used for biochemical compositions. You can see how these instruments are really of great help for the field data sets. We can see how the spectral reflectance curve is made over the spectral channels, and you can see how the different forest type behave differently in different spectral channels. So whatever area of understanding forest type, forest species, forest density we are interested in can be easily obtained. Nowadays, it's very popular is tree laser scanner, where it's provide you highly accurate detailed 3D data sets. Forest canopy structure, bole height, bole grid can be measured, can be used for canopy characteristics, biomass studies. So you can see that this is the field photographs that you'll be going into the field, and you'll be recording the data sets using such instruments. So a large team is required whenever you're going into the field. That's why prior investigation of the area, prior knowledge of the area is very important. So what is the summary from the entire thing what we have discussed today in our class is complete designing of sampling is essential before going into the field, whether you are going for a probabilistic sampling or a non-probabilistic or a standardized, stratified or random or a cluster based, whatever is, and that depends on the objective or your study. Secondly, the resources available, like what is the fund, what is the time, what is the money, how many manpower is required, whether all those manpower has got that capacity and the expertise and the training. That recently you have seen that a lot of instrument is being given during this pandemic related to this oxygen concentrator or oxygen level finding. So many of this instrument was not properly handled, because of the person who were handling is were not capable enough, and they didn't have the expertise. So the expertise, the training of the manpower is as important as the instrument. Then feasibility of accessibility, whether what is the distance, whether you can carry all the instrument to those area or the field that you have searched for or the area that you're interested in it. Then you have to have a proper understanding of the permissions of that area without going into the field. First you take all the permissions, all the formats, all the instrument, the ground help, any local support is required, or any local departmental portion is required. So all such things should be done. All such things must be taken into consideration so as to increase the accuracy of the data set, so as to increase the validity of the data sets, because at last your validation of the map, the accuracy of the features that you have targeted, or the maps that you are interested in or that you will be preparing, will depend on the quality of the instrumentation, the quality of the manpower, the quality of the expert who has digitized those data set. And finally, you need instrument that are handy in nature. Try to keep cables and the external source of energy is not available in the field, so try to avoid all sorts such sorts of instrument which requires external power. So nowadays very limited instruments are there, and you have to have a proper battery backup. The proper charging should be done of those battery sets, and they must be rechargeable, so that if you went into the field and there is some specific battery that is required, and the battery loses its shape and size, or there is a malfunction at that point of time, you cannot complain, or you cannot say to your boss or the principal investigator that there is a problem in a battery, because those battery are generally specified for a specific instrument. So all those things must be seen with the prior to going into the field, which are the area where you can go, which are the safest, because you have to have the safety of your life, because life is as equal important as that of a field. So you have to see all these security features, you have to see all the instrumentation feature, the settling of the data sets, then what is the mechanism that we'll be using, what is the method you will be using, what are the techniques that you will be using, what are the procedure that you'll be using. All those things has to be studied, and then you will be going into the field. But I ensure you that I have been associated with various government projects. The field data are the best data. Or when you go into the field, when I was a student and I started my field career, each and every year we go used to go into the field prior to monsoon period, post monsoon period, because the project that I was associated with involved both field verification. And when I into the field, that enhanced my knowledge, that enhanced my understanding of my terrain. Previously I was more kind of a technical person who was only interested in digitization or digital image processing. We used to do, and we used to do and think of that our data sets, the models that are inbuilt in the software, or whatever understanding or whatever interpretation that we are doing will be nearly 100% accurate. We were very confident enough. But when we went into the field, at many part, there were many homogeneous or a feature were duplicate in nature, and that used to give the reflectance of a same feature. So you have to avoid, you have to see the accuracy, you have to have a understanding, the confidence, the manpower, the guards to go into the field, because these fields are very scary whenever you are going. Maybe there is no time limit, there is no food, proper water. It's not like a metro, like you'll be going, you'll be finding MacD, or you'll be finding some Domino's. Field is totally different. But at last, if you want to experience, want to have a real time experience of the feature of the classes, of the nature, of the different religion, of the different knowledge, of the different culture, language, the socio-economic diversity, the culture, the problem. When you go into the field, then only you will be understanding what the real problem is. Yeah, satellite images do provide, but until unless you are not going into the field, you are not interacting with the persons, we are not interacting with the nature, you're not visualizing the nature, you're not feeling the soil, you're not feeling the company, or you're not feeling the heat, your entire mapping, the accuracy will differ, and that depends on the expertise. I was very fortunate to work with some of the eminent scientists of ISRO, great professors of India in the field of GIS, remote sensing, and finally, with their expertise, with my energy, with my zeal to learn new area, explore new terrain, interact with various person, food, culture, language. It's a great experience altogether. So I am nowadays, or after few interaction into the field, I was very excited, and I always ask my principal investigators or my other fellow members who were in the field whether I can accompany them when they are going into the field, because whenever you go into the field, the soil is different, the temperature is different, the climate is different, the forest is different, the accuracy level is different. So the more you visit the field, the more you go into the field, the more you work with the various kinds of instrument, that will make you more confident, that will make you more smart, that will make you more handsome in handling the data sets. So whenever you are going into the field, be very confident, be very strong, because at last, if you want to excel in the field of geoinformatics, the more you have exposure to the field, the more you have hand on to the field with the instrument, with the nature, with the ground truth, you can see with 100% accuracy that I have gone into the field, I have got the GPS point, I have got the field photographs, and whatever the statement, whatever classes that I have either distally or using visual interpretation, whatever features that we have delineated will be the same what you into the field, because you have taken the proper sampling size, the proper indicators, the proper representative samples, field photographs of each and every land use, land cover class that you have mapped into the field, so that whoever puts a question to whatever land use, land cover characteristics that you have mapped or what you have delineated in a satellite image has a field photographs, had a GPS location attached to that, and then we can say ki whatever confusion that you have, we have hyperlinked with our GPS points and the field photographs, and you can see the accuracy of the map. So whatever things that we have digitized using our signatures, using our satellite images within, whether that is a coarse, high or medium resolution, the accuracy is near about 99.99%. Nobody can be 100% accurate, but we will try to be close to our accuracy, as close to we can. So that's why field verification and instrumentation are very important, as your satellite data is important, as your various secondary data is important. So with this, I will end my today's lecture on instrumentation and the importance of ground truth data in remote sensing in JAS. With this, I'll conclude my today's presentation. After this, we'll have 10 minutes of questionnaire round where we'll be discussing the questionnaire of each and every student, and thereafter we'll have a 10 minutes of LMS quiz in your LMS. Thanks.